Hey guys, welcome back to the channel McNallie Money, home of all things stock, investment, and personal finance related. In today's video, we're going to be profiling ThreeD Capital. This is a venture capital firm. We've got the CEO on to help give us an understanding about their investments, their profile, and their strategy. We've got a lot to go through in today's presentation, but before we do, please take a second, hit the like button, you guys. It's a big help to myself and the channel. If you're not already subscribed, McNallie Money, feel free to join. And let us know in the comments section below if you've heard of ThreeD Capital before, if you're currently holding shares, and how you think their investment portfolio stacks up to some of the other players in the VC space. Now, with that being said, let's get into today's interview. Okay guys, so that's right. Today's video, a really exciting one. We've got Sheldon Inwentash, the chairman, founder, and CEO of ThreeD Capital. This is a really interesting VC firm. They're invested in a lot of the same sectors as we cover on the channel. Sheldon wanted to come on the program today, give us an update on the company, some of the things they've been working on in terms of outlook for 2024. So Sheldon, thanks so much for being here with us today.
Thanks for inviting me, Bryce.
You're most welcome. Now, getting into it here, ThreeD Capital, for people who are new or maybe haven't heard about this firm before, can you give us a background on yourself, Sheldon, and what ultimately led you to found this organization?
Sure. Again, it's great to be here. I know everybody comes from a different discipline, but I'll sort of give 40 years in 40 seconds. But you know, I'm trained as a CPA, Price Waterhouse and so forth. I was an analyst. I built a number of businesses, including an oil and gas company for a major life insurance company. And then I just decided I wanted to be an entrepreneur. And I founded my first company, which this ThreeD is sort of, the previous one is the predecessor, but it's a very similar business model, a company called Pine Tree Capital. And basically, I took over a shell company, financed it at 10 cents, and ultimately exited at $26. Raised billions of dollars for the companies in the portfolio. Was very hands-on, value-added in helping those companies get to where they had to be, multi-plus billion-dollar exits, and probably raised $30 billion over the course of that lifetime. So basically exited, and then my son Jackson wanted to get into the business, just finished university, finished tenure at a major Canadian bank, and then a banker, and then I sort of love this business. It's sort of a real passion for me. So we established ThreeD. We've been stealth for 7 years. So this is the first time I'm actually doing this type of forum because, as I said to you earlier, Bryce, I really want to talk about things that are being done and happening and executing rather than tell you about all the things we're working on and how we got to, the best mousetrap. So I believe 2024 is our breakout year. A number of our ventures are commercializing, and they're pretty disruptive and quite interesting. We have a number of IPOs coming in the digital market side. So this is a very exciting time for us. And what really ThreeD does for the average, say, investor, and we have retail, but we also have institutional investors. We have about 70 companies. We're diversified with AI, cybersecurity. We actually have the only medical drug cannabis company that's actually getting approved drugs, not just selling CBD. Again, all 7-year projects of ours. We have very interesting biotech investments. So for those that want to get access to extremely disruptive companies, where you can invest in a company that invests on ground zero layer valuation and then helps those companies build. So we're value added, we're strategic capital, we're typically the largest investor. Well, this is a way to get exposure to a lot of these really great areas with a team that's actively managing it and is diversified so you don't have all your eggs in one basket. So I think that's what ThreeD really offers the average investor out there that wants to invest in early stage companies.
Makes sense. And not only does it take some of the legwork out of all the due diligence, but it also allows access to private companies that haven't hit the public markets yet, right? So that's what I always find really interesting about these type of firms. Not only are you getting the curated companies, a lot of times on the cutting edge of technology, like you've alluded to here, Sheldon, but you're also getting the reassurance, the diversification, and that experience that you talk about from your former firm there. Now, you mentioned you have over 70 companies, so dozens and dozens of companies. You mentioned some of the sectors. Do you have a few that you can kind of maybe describe to us or give us the elevator pitch on a couple of these firms, just to give us an idea of what types of industry you invest in?
Absolutely. And if I could just say, too, in the new times that we're in, I had never done this before, but we set up a YouTube channel. So you can actually find it through our website or through ThreeD YouTube, I guess. And what I decided to do is, yes, I'm the spokesman, I'm the messenger, I'm the flavor of a lot of these projects. But really, at the end of the day, I think a lot of people would like to hear from the companies themselves. So not only am I interviewed, Jackson's interviewed, but we have slowly, methodically interviewing the companies that we consider to be significant, that are going to move our needle, and investors would really be interested in listening again to the horse's mouth. So some of the companies I'm going to mention now are basically on that YouTube presentation, and we put out a press release of the companies that we're going to be interviewed, so that we have to be extremely transparent with our audience and let everybody be on the same level. So I've never said this before, but we have two companies that we've invested in the whole tech stack for 7 years that are both commercializing this year. I believe each of them are trillion-dollar companies, and I have never said this before. I don't say this lightly, and I've had many big exits, but I'll explain it to you. And they're both based on a blockchain-like protocol called TODA, T-O-D-A. So TODA is a blockchain-like protocol, but it is infinitely scalable. So blockchain, being a consensus mechanism, is slower, and you can't scale your transactions per second. And also, it's costly to do a transaction. Today, through KYC, verification, third-party processing costs, it can be 50 cents to $1 for every time a transaction is done. TODA allows infinite scalability with costs of a fraction of a penny. So there's two major applications that come out of it, and I call them killer apps. The one is in the area of micropayments. So previously, as I said, it was just too expensive to, let's say, consume playing a video for 5 minutes, and you want to pay 5 cents to do that. The market is not divisible and fractionalizable in that manner. Or 6 billion people out of 8 billion people on planet Earth cannot afford subscription models. They can't afford $9.99, $19.99, whether it be Spotify, Netflix, or just subscribing to a periodical. If, let's say, you want to do research and you don't want to subscribe to New England Journal of Medicine, but you want a specific article in their archives from 1963, and you'll pay them 25 cents, you can do that now. Before, the cost of all this onboarding and processing and on-ramp, off-ramp, and so forth in terms of payment rails, it could not be done. This is now happening. So the company is called TODA-Q, built on the TODA protocol. And it's launching with Google, CIBC and RBC, so two main Canadian banks, the biggest, together with Google. There are other companies that are entering this space that are doing bear hugs around TODA-Q because they have their own business models. This is basically a very disruptive force in many business models where, as I said before, let's say you're in India and you got 12 rupees, which might be 8 cents, and you want to play Fortnite for 10 minutes, and that's it. You can't afford the game, you can't subscribe to the game, but you want to consume the game. You can now do it. And most of the world really prefers user fees than all these subscription models where you often forget about them. you forget to cancel them, you're not using them fully. And those subscription model companies, have what's called the long tail of content, where it's not a current movie, but something or documentary or whatever it is from years ago. You can now monetize that where you couldn't previously. So we believe this is going to democratize and change many business models. The company just was recognized as top 8 fintech startup in Canada by the Canadian government. So we believe this company is poised for greatness. Because we were a founding investor, ThreeD has 280 million TOTA notes. Every time you do a transaction, a TOTA note gets consumed and redeemed. So we believe it's going to provide, in the coming years, substantial cash flow to us. The second company that is, again, off this same protocol is basically, and I know this is a big statement I'm going to say, is creating the Internet of AI. In other words, it's going to allow and facilitate all AI machines, all AI protocols to speak to each other. And currently, the big problem or the challenge in the world of AI is the centralization power of one party controlling it. We are totally decentralized. And what we allow is for all, whether you're Anthropic or OpenAI or a Russian AI system, they all can speak to each other and they all can become smarter. And this all happened a couple years ago through a partnership between Singularity.net, which is run by Ben Goertzel, and he's been in AI for 30 odd years, and TOTA, again, the same protocol, where Singularity.net needed to build on a protocol that was scalable. And I think they were building at the time on Cardano, and they realized its consensus mechanisms are slow. And when you do AI transactions, and we believe that in the future, 99.9% of all AI transactions, commands are going to be machine to machine. They're all going to be pre-ordained through commands, through many different applications. Well, you're going to find that there's going to be billions, if not trillions, of transactions that are messaging going back between these architectured systems per second. And so TOTA, Singularity found and realized that they can scale where they previously could not scale. So Singularity and TOTA came together and created what is called Hypercycle. And Hypercycle, it has a token, you have software nodes, and then you have data centers. And that ecosystem is creating the Internet of AI. And basically for everybody who participates in that ecosystem, of which ThreeD is in very deep, participates and facilitates Internet of AI occurring through their ecosystem and gets paid. So almost like mining Bitcoin, except you're mining compute power that allows all these systems to work faster, quicker, cheaper. So companies that are consuming compute are going to save up to 60% on their compute costs as they integrate into the Hypercycle ecosystem. I can't say who, but there are the biggest AI companies on planet Earth that are, going to be joining forces and believe that this is a big, big thing. And also, because it's decentralized, we don't have a lot of the pitfalls of the more centralized AI, large language model, ChatGPT, et cetera, type of companies.
Sure.
So those are two that I think really rise to the top. But we also have other AI initiatives. We have a company that is building AI systems for smart cities, because basically cities, municipalities, they're all broke. They're not efficient. And this company, it's called Infinity AI. We're the largest shareholder in. It creates, through time series data, the ability for these municipalities to manage their sewage and water. And so rather than build new facilities, they're investing in making the current ones more efficient. In addition, they're going into other applications in the energy sector, in healthcare and so forth. So, and it's a public company. And again, being interviewed, all these companies are interviewed on our YouTube channel. Another AI company that I'm really excited about, it's commercializing right now, this summer, is they've created an AI system that came out of the University of Michigan, but is now principally collaborating with Harvard through a headset, and it can be any headset, and our technology, so people might know of Neuralink. Well, Neuralink is invasive. This is a totally non-invasive technology. It's called neurable. And so through the headset, it actually reads your electromagnetic waves in your brain. And I could sort of say here, turn off my phone, and your phone will turn on, change the channel on music, and it will do it. Change a PowerPoint. You can actually, in a way, give commands. Well, one of the first applications, so you can think of someone who's a paraplegic and so forth that suddenly now can live their life in a way because all they have is their mind. Their body, has given up. But the first big application is going to be in sort of cognitive decline, where you're wearing the headset and suddenly I'm talking to you, but my mind wanders because I started thinking of something else, and I lose focus. It basically forces you to get back and focus. So it almost monitors, that sort of cognitive distraction that we all have, because in life, every idea thinks about another idea and so forth. So this company, Neurable, it's already done its deal with its first major headphone company. I encourage people to also listen to the YouTube interview of the Ramses, the CEO and founder. I think it's really fascinating. Again, off of AI. We have a cybersecurity company. I believe he's been interviewed or being interviewed, that has created using AI through pressure waves as part of a $220 million contract with the Canadian government for their CF-18 fighter jets. And this is the cybersecurity solution. It's come out of the University of Waterloo, which is where Microsoft hires most of its engineers up here in Canada, just outside Toronto. So that company is really starting to gain a lot of traction. Another company, again, 7 years, is a company called Avicanna. Avicanna is our only investment in the space, is a pharmaceutical drug company using cannabinoids and THC as a substrate in their formulations to actually cure medical problems, diseases, epilepsy, managing other neurological diseases. So everything they do is based on clinical trials. It's not just, hey, we're using CBD, take some and make you feel better. So now, today, the DEA just declassified cannabis as Schedule 2, I think, or going to 3 or 1 to 2. In other words, almost not decriminalizing it, but taking it off the more dangerous drug list like heroin. So we're extremely positive about that company. We believe they're going to be profitable in the coming months. Their margins are great. The management is great. And I see a lot of great news and milestones. So I believe between now and the end of the year, we're going to have some very, very substantial milestones on multiple fronts in many of our companies. We have 4 digital asset companies that are going to be starting to trade. One of them we believe is going to be, let's call it the regulated Binance version out of Dubai. We're very high on that. We invested that at the seed level, and we believe it's in the coming months, it's also going to start trading. So we're going to have a lot of lift. Another area that we're about 20% of our portfolio, because I have a deep background in it, is mining. We are one of the biggest landholders for mining in the country of Botswana. We have a mine that's going to be going back into production in the nickel, copper, cobalt space. And we also have massive interest in gold. And we have a very strong feeling that, we are now entering a major gold cycle that ties in with the U.S. deficit and world deficits in all countries, inflation, stickiness, and so forth. So it's a real good hedge, again, against, unforeseen circumstances that cause other investment categories to decline in value.
Yeah, well, thank you for walking through that in more detail. Obviously, with such a big portfolio, Sheldon, there's a lot to unpack there. But listening to some of these trends, the AI, the blockchain, the Bitcoin mining, these are a lot of companies we cover on the channel, not to mention some of the cannabis stocks. The one you mentioned, we've actually covered as well. And then getting into some of the more future technologies. Listening you talk about those AI companies, it's just insane how quickly this technology has progressed and advanced. And the fact that you've been working with some of these companies for many, many years and they're all now coming to fruition. Not to mention, the gold cycle, some of the lithium, the resource sector seems to be positioned well. So next question for you, as you start to monetize some of these investments, what is the primary way of doing that? Is it through the share price when these companies go public? Do you have a revenue agreement with them, licensing models? What is the revenue model for ThreeD Capital?
Okay, it's a good question. Historically, the models were you invested in the companies and you traded at a relationship to your NAV, your net asset value, of which we traded a significant discount. What's unique about our business model now is if I took the two big companies that I talked about, one is micropayments, we essentially own a massive position in their currency. So as their currency is used, we are going to get cash flow. So we're not going to be just trading as a function of what's the overall value, but we actually are going to have cash flow from the micropayment side. In addition, with Hypercycle, we own the tokens, we own the nodes, we're partnering with data centers. As that system goes live, we will also be earning substantial monthly income in the form of tokens, which can be sold into fiat currencies. So we believe we have two big revenue sources that's going to make us profitable. Normally, the life cycle of these junior companies is, and when we get involved, we like to see a 50 to 100x our money. So we take risk, but we get involved very early. So that is actually possible. So if we pay 2 cents, which we did in Hypercycle, and it goes to $1, which it just was a couple months ago, that's possible. But the higher the value you pay, the less of a chance you're going to reach that type of multiple. So buying at the right price is extremely important. I believe that money is made in the buying. That's the key point, because you always feel good if your entry point is correct and right. But many of these companies that I mentioned, for example, in the digital asset arena, as they become public, we have to eat what we kill. So if we feel that we have a substantial profit in the range of the multiples that I've been talking about, we will take some money off the table and then use that to reinvest. So imagine we have a company that has had no revenue in the last 5 years. We've not done a financing. We keep investing in the individual companies in multiple rounds, and we've bought back over 10% of the shares outstanding. So we're actually making the shares more accretive for shareholders as you have less shares outstanding compared to other companies that just serially dilute. So we do that through exiting something to invest in something else. And that's our strategy. And even though we've been in a pretty bear market for the junior side, we've actually done reasonably well over the last few years. So that's sort of our liquidity model.
Gotcha. And that kind of leads me to my last question here, Sheldon. In terms of diversification, obviously the portfolio of companies that you guys hold is a key point of difference for some other venture capital firms out there. You also talk about the experience, the timing, the type of industries you pick. What really differentiates ThreeD Capital from others in this sector, or why should people invest their money with you guys?
Some people say we're a public family office. So what does that mean? It means that we are the largest shareholders, so we are aligned with all other shareholders. We're not here managing other people's money, grabbing big salaries, and just taking care of ourselves at the expense. So all shareholders and management and owners are all aligned. That is very important. The second thing is we're public. Many companies in the VC or venture capital space, they're private. So if you invest in it and you're investing in probably a GP-LP structure, you are locked in for 7 years and you can't get your money out. In our case, you can come in or you can exit. And it gives everybody that freedom to operate on their own liquidity, which is something I prefer. I don't want people to be locked in because that's unfair to them. And also, I think that there are no real companies that I've seen out there that have our diversity in terms of the industries that I've mentioned. They typically are like they just do real estate or they just do enterprise software. They're much more limited. So if somebody really wants a basket managed by people that are adding value daily to those investments, people say that we're like a mini ARK Investments. Well, ARK just buys stocks. They don't add value to those companies other than promoting them because they're big cap companies that they're investing in. We make a difference in the companies that we invest in. We add value, which is sort of like the sweat equity. So it increases the value of our investments without even having to put up more money. So that sort of gives a real good leverage ratio for investors who invest in ThreeD.
Makes sense. Now, you mentioned there's a couple near-term catalysts in terms of commercialization, revenue, monthly recurring revenue coming your way. So a final question for you, Sheldon, to wrap things up here. What are some future catalysts we should be watching for in 2024 here from ThreeD?
Well, there's going to be a lot of substantial milestones in probably 25 of our companies. And as there's news about those, we don't really put out press releases in ThreeD. What I do instead is I post on social media things that are relevant to the companies that we invest in. And in many cases, they put out their own press releases, and then I just repost them to the social media space, as well as, again, we interviewed these CEOs on YouTube. They talk about what they can talk about. But I would say there are so many catalysts, so many milestones that almost no week goes by where there's not something extremely interesting that I don't put out there that is very relevant. So that's why I say I really didn't want to talk about these companies until we could actually see commercial milestones hit where people can look at it and go, I get it. You got a contract for this amount of money. You got a partnership with that type of company. Wow, this is interesting. I can now tangibly value those companies because the data is there. And so I would just say, monitor our social media, our interviews, and I'm now becoming what used to be an inward CEO, becoming outward and trying to get people just the eyeballs. I'm not saying you have to buy the stock at all, but just follow the news. And I think the equity will follow behind that.
I agree. And that's really the point of the channel, is to tell the story and let you guys make the decision. So Sheldon, thanks so much for coming on here, giving us some more insight into ThreeD Capital, your current portfolio, and some of the exciting news on the horizon. If you guys are still watching, make sure you hit the comment section. You guys, let us know if you have any questions for Sheldon. We'll get to those in our next interview. Hit the like button and feel free to subscribe to the channel. That's all for now. Thanks so much for watching, and we'll see you guys soon.